Good day and welcome to the Frontline Chatter podcast brought to you by the World of EUC. I am your host, Jarian Gibson, and I am back today with one of our board members, our co-chair, Sean Massey. How you doing today, Sean?
I'm good, Jarian. How are you?
Doing pretty good, getting those last things done, to close the year out, the holiday sprint's coming up and so yeah, getting all that stuff done.
Yeah. So are you keeping warm down there in Kansas City?
I will be after today. We have that nice little cold, blast coming through,
Yeah.
but it's supposed to be like high 40s, low 50s the rest of the week. So looking forward to that.
Yep. Good to hear. So, yep.
All right. Well, we have one of our core sponsors on today, and they came aboard with the World of EUC. And they were also at EUC World Amplify in Minneapolis, Minnesota this year as well. So we'd like to welcome Google on today with us and welcome Rob Beer from Google. How you doing today, Rob?
Hi there, guys. Doing very well, thank you. Glad to hear it's just as cold over where you are as it is here in Munich.
Yeah, so you're over across the pond from us, and thank you for coming on. It's probably your afternoon there right now, and it's our morning here. So thank you for spending the time with us today.
Of course, thanks.
And then for our listeners, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and what you do at Google?
All right. So I'm Rob Beard, Senior Product Manager leading product development for Cameo by Google. Delighted to be part of the show today.
Well, thank you for coming on, and thank you to Google for supporting the World of EUC and supporting the community. We're very grateful for that. And, so let's go ahead and get started. So for our listeners who don't know about Google in the enterprise, and more specifically in the EUC space, can you give us an overview?
Sure. So Google isn't actually that new to the EUC space. We've been building EUC solutions for education, enterprise, and for ourselves actually for well over a decade now. And all of that's really been aligned with sort of Google's North Star vision around EUC, which is cloud first, secure by design, and ultimately browser centric. Now, I guess as the enterprise world becomes more SaaS based and more businesses are realizing that the traditional OS is no longer that core workspace and the browser is, that aligns so much more closely with where we've really been aiming. So I guess as businesses increasingly demand this sort of true web first footprint, we've really been working to build out a managed devices ecosystem around that. So it's not just one product, it's not just Chrome. It's really a core sort of set of three products that allow us to solve this secure endpoint problem based around the web. So first off, we've got Chrome OS or Chrome OS Flex, which is a read-only immutable OS that eliminates the needs for traditional hands-on device management and removes the need for sort of traditional third-party security agents as well. The second piece, really at the core of this, is the browser, so Chrome and Chrome Enterprise. This really is that secure workspace where work actually happens. It's that familiar environment for both web and SaaS apps. And thanks to our recent acquisition, Cameo, also now legacy Windows apps as well. And then underpinning all of this, we got the management layer. So it's a product we call Google Admin Console, which is a cloud-native management console for all of the devices and browsers in your managed ecosystem. And whether you adopt some or all of these products, Google solutions can really act as a modern secure endpoint at the core. So whether you're using an enterprise-issued Chromebook or a legacy Windows laptop or a BYOD Mac, Google can provide the secure entry point to your web, SaaS, and internal legacy apps.
All right. So, that's a great overview. I don't think a lot of people realize just how much Google does in the end user computing space, because typically we think about Google as, search and AI and, a bunch of different more consumer focused services. Although, you mentioned education, I think almost every school district in the United States gives out Chromebooks and uses Google Workspace or
Yeah.
and I apologize. The marketing and branding on that has changed a few times since I signed up for my account for my business. But moving on with that, right? So you mentioned the Cameo by Google acquisition. Congratulations on your launch, by the way, back in November. And I think you touched on this a little bit, but can you really give us a bit of a deep dive in what Cameo by Google is, and how that acquisition process has gone, and what customers can expect if they were to look at or utilize Cameo by Google?
Sure. So first off, thank you very much for the congrats there. We're very excited about this. It's been quite a few months of hard work on our side. So yes, back in May of 2024, Google acquired Cameo, so a dedicated virtual app delivery provider, and the whole mission behind that product was to make virtualization simple. Now, Google acquired Cameo really to solve that like last mile of cloud migration. So we know that 90% or so of enterprises want to move to this web first world. Like we've got a lot of research that backs that. But we also know that nearly half the applications in some of these enterprises are these legacy thick client apps, and that's really holding back a lot of modernization in these companies. Now, Cameo allows organizations to turn these legacy Windows apps into web apps effectively and streaming them to the browser. Or if you want the sort of look and feel of an app, also progressive web apps. So it's just super simple, lightweight, individual app virtualization. And I guess the sort of the critical question that we get asked quite a lot is like, so is this just Google's VDI? And the answer is sort of not quite. So there's a core distinction really between virtual app delivery, which is what we're calling it, versus VDI, which is sort of the traditional way of doing things. So VDI, typically you're streaming a full Windows desktop, which can be heavy, expensive, and given a lot of users' work is now happening in the browser, it's often a little bit sort of overkill for what users are looking for. Whereas virtual app delivery in Cameo specifically strips away that desktop, strips away all of the Windows profile stuff that comes along, strips away all of that baggage, and it just delivers apps, right? Streams the pixels to the browser, because ultimately that's what users are looking for, right? They're looking for apps. We want to meet that need, and ideally we want to do it with less Windows, not more. So yeah, that's really our vision.
That's a good vision too, because you see a lot of customers out there, you said that last mile of apps, and there's always going to be Windows apps in some form or function. There's always legacy stuff that they always can't drag along. So being able to take those applications, modernize those, and then be able to deliver those via a new factor is a great way to capture that last mile of the user. And I think Sean had a comment too as well. So before we go next, I'll let Sean comment.
It is really cool to hear, apps being delivered directly to a web browser and to be, modernized without having to go in and refactor or redevelop them. But before we move on to the next question, Cameo is new to me. I have heard the name in the past, but what I'm kind of curious about, because like as you were explaining this, Rob, I was kind of thinking like, oh, well, this, compares to some other, virtual app delivery products in the sector. So, like a lot of those products require, a heavy Windows Server infrastructure on the back end with like RDSH and additional licensing. What does Cameo require, and how does it kind of set itself apart from some of those heavier lift products that do app delivery or like, single app delivery versus, like full VDI? I guess the question is, right, like what sets Cameo apart just besides web browser delivery?
Sure. So I want to come back to web browser delivery because that's actually a very important set of features, but I'll cover that one in a moment. So like the real killer feature set we've got with Cameo is actually its simplicity. So typically with virtualization products, you've got to go and stand up lots of infrastructure to get started. Everything's hosted within your environment. You need a lot of sort of understanding of networking, security, policies, control, all of that. You need to know about a lot of things to get started with most other virtualization products. Cameo strips all of that away. So the access layer to all applications and the management surface is the same. So it's all web hosted, it's all cloud hosted, it's cloud native by design. So you don't need to host gateways. You don't need to host anything else in your own environment. It's all managed for you. Now, for running these applications, we've got various different choices. So you can either choose to bring your own on-prem environment if you're already very familiar with running Windows servers or fleets of Windows VMs, or you can use our native plugins to both GCP and actually Azure as well. So no matter where you're starting from, we can come and meet you where you are. Now, what Cameo can do is basically seed an environment within your GCP project or Azure tenant. It will set up all the networking, VMs. It will handle the scaling up, scaling down of all the infrastructure based upon consumption. So you don't end up with a whole bunch of sort of wasted resources not being used. As more users use more apps, then things scale up. As users tail off towards the end of their working day, resources spin down. It's all handled automatically by the central brokerage layer. So you can arrive as a small or medium-sized business with little to no experience doing any like virtualization or really cloud infrastructure management, and you can get started and have apps deployed in 60 minutes. It really is that simple. Now, obviously, we've got much more advanced features for customers who are coming from these other sort of more traditional virtualization environments. There's a lot of customization that's possible here as well. But really, the beauty of this product is in its simplicity. And because we're not dealing with these like old, and because we're not dealing with sort of these thick client apps across all these different devices, we only have one delivery method. So it makes it much simpler for us, and it runs the same on every device. It's simpler to manage, simpler to debug, simple to deploy. That's really what we're aiming for here. Right. Sorry, you wanted to jump in with a question, Sean.
that was my question. So no, I'm. Thanks for that deep dive on it.
I guess actually just one other thing. Sorry, I said I'd come back to this later. The value of delivering this through the browser, though, this is where it starts to get really cool, both for end users and also for admins. So traditionally, when you've got legacy applications and either sort of full OS running locally for end users, or you've got a virtualized OS running for users and SaaS apps, as an admin, you have to look at two entirely different ways of managing and securing these apps and providing DLP and security tooling and so on and so on. By running these applications in the browser as SaaS applications, you remove one entire plane that you have to go and manage there. And you can start to wrap all of these legacy Windows applications in the same like DLP tooling, security tooling, networking security, everything else that you're applying to your SaaS apps and web apps in your organization, which drastically simplifies the way you have to manage and sort of apply user controls there. And for users, where this gets even cooler is you can now use Gemini in Chrome to interact with these legacy applications. So you can have things like your old ERP loaded in your browser tab. You can click the Gemini in Chrome button, and you can ask it to analyze what's going on. Or you can ask it to draft an email ready to go, which summarizes all the data that's on the screen in front of you. Like, you can start to really teach these old apps new tricks with Cameo and Chrome Enterprise, which is really cool.
And then I'm imagining that, if I'm an organization that's, buying completely into the Google ecosystem, right? I have, Google Chrome Enterprise. I get Cameo. I'm in Google Cloud and I'm in Google Workspace. Now I have one admin console that ties it all together. And I can start building in, policies around, access and tie it into a central identity service and all of that. So it's, one plane of management, one glass of pane, as opposed to multiple panes of glass.
Correct.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Like I single pane of glass, single glass of pane is old habit that dies hard. So
that's fine. I know what you meant. So yes, that is ultimately the goal. So Cameo is still relatively new to the Google family, and we're working on both the sort of the new UI surface, which would be part of our sort of management surfaces, But obviously, most importantly, we need to make sure we're helping customers navigate any transition over time. So importantly, there's business continuity, and in some future state, when we sort of combine these consoles together, we want to make sure that we're bringing our customers along on that journey in a careful and controlled way. But yes.
All right. Really cool.
Yeah, it makes complete sense on the acquisition and how it's going to fit into Google's workspace for the enterprise and so forth. And speaking of the enterprise, Chrome Enterprise, you mentioned a little bit in the introduction of Google. There's a complete suite of offerings beyond just the browser, including Chrome Enterprise Core and Enterprise Platinum. Can you give our listeners an overview of the features?
Sure. So, okay, let's start with Core versus Premium and the sort of secure browser shift, really, right? So, as I've said, we really see that the browser's kind of the new operating system, right? So 90% of users' day is spent in that browser tab. And traditionally, like things like security tools, firewalls, VPNs, antivirus, they haven't really kept pace with this trend, which is users spend a lot of time in the browser, right? They were designed to protect the device or the network. Mm-hmm. And that made a lot of sense when you got thick apps and they sort of ruled the user's workflow. But they're kind of blind to what happens inside the browser, right? And this creates this interesting gap. So as more and more happens in that browser surface on the web, new risks are emerging or old risks are becoming more significant. So like if we take a real world example, right? Customers are telling us, my users are pasting sensitive customer data into ChatGPT, or like my contractors are downloading a bunch of internal reports onto their personal unmanaged devices. This is what the secure enterprise browser really is there to solve. So we've got a few things in the Google lineup here. First off, there's Chrome Enterprise Core. This is sort of the foundational like management layer. This is free. It's included with Chrome browser. Like any organization can just get started with this today and start to bring control to their fleet of devices. The real capability here is to give IT visibility and control into what your users are doing. So the sort of the key thing here really is for many organizations, it's extensions, right? So with Chrome Enterprise Core, IT can finally see what extensions are running across the fleet. And they can start to block malicious extensions or force install their own like enterprise sanctioned password managers. And they can ensure everyone's using the latest version of Chrome and just like force that across their organization to force consistency and compliance without creating any user friction or anything else, right? And you can then start to apply some like they sound relatively straightforward, but like some relatively common sense like enterprise policies around this. So things that help solve the first part of the data boundary problem. So like to give you an example, like you can prevent users signing in with their personal Gmail accounts, meaning when they're navigating through like enterprise resources or SaaS apps or whatever, those sensitive passwords and bookmarks and things aren't going to your users' Gmail personal profiles in Chrome. That doesn't happen anymore. You enforce like your company's managed policy around that. So that's sort of the real core of this.
So then, just real quick, then like I can use Google Enterprise Core to say this instance of Google Chrome, which you signed into with your corporate account on your corporate and or even potentially personal device, is locked down. You can only have one profile, which is the corporate profile. You can't switch to a personal one in a separate Chrome instance that might have your personal password manager, that might have your personal bookmarks that are syncing to your personal unmanaged, unsecured Gmail account. It's heavily locked down. And as an admin, I can then fully control that browser experience.
So that's the sort of design. So yes, so specifically BYOD is not designed to be part of this. I'll come to BYOD in a moment. It's more about making sure that on your fleet of managed devices, your Chrome browser deployment is consistent, up to date, and you don't have like malicious extensions installed, and you don't have users signing in with their personal profiles, right? So think of it more as like sort of like the air traffic control for managed browsers, right? It allows you to block the bad stuff, like malicious extensions. You can force the good stuff, like security patches, and you can then start to segregate personal data from work data, right? And the point is, this is the free version, right? And we start to see as we roll this out, we get admins realizing that across their device fleets, they've got 40 different versions of Chrome running and 2,000 extensions kicking around, including like malware that we'd stripped out from the Chrome Web Store years ago. And the ability just to deploy at one click, like a consistent deployment of your browser, particularly given its importance with access to SaaS apps and all of your corporate resources, like this is incredible, and it's free. Right. This is our starting point. So this is Chrome Enterprise Core.
Nice.
Shall I move on to the premium versions, or any more questions on Core?
I don't have any questions on Core. So like that.
Okay. So all right. Premium. Obviously, I'm a product manager. I'm always going to get more excited with more. So what is Chrome Enterprise Premium? This is where we start to apply that like security layer. So this is a paid SKU. So this was formerly known as Google's Beyond Corp product within our cloud organization, but with a bunch of like data loss prevention and other controls wrapped around it. This really allows you to take that like relatively passive browsing experience and turn it into like a true zero trust gatekeeper for your secure resources. So this is where we start to get to that point of like lockdown within the appropriate context. So like to give you an idea, this is the kind of space where you can deploy policies like you can access Salesforce, great, but only if your device is encrypted, your OS is up to date, you're running the latest version of the browser, and you're logging in from a corporate IP. And you can start to build this like quite complex set of enterprise policies to sort of really make sure that your corporate data is safe. And instead of having to do that with 6-7 different services, network products, or whatever, you've got one. This is the browser, right? It strips away the need for like VPNs and all this other stuff that the enterprises are used to, and it channels it through one thing, which is Chrome Enterprise Premium. So like to give you an idea, to use that same example, if a user then tries to access like a Salesforce instance from some, I don't know, unmanaged BYOD iPad in some coffee shop or whatever, the browser just blocks access to it. The login page just doesn't even show to them. They're told, you can't do this on this device. Go and follow this set of rules. You need to go and get your appropriate device and access it from the appropriate place. So this is the kind of thing we're aiming for. Then obviously I sort of touched on data loss prevention as well. I guess this really is the number one request we get from admins when we talk about like a secure browsing experience. Admins, they want to block users from pasting sensitive data like code or credit card numbers or like customer PII or whatever it is into external websites, or more recently, Gen AI tools. Mm-hmm. So AI is obviously everywhere right now. You know, users love having users love having chatbots at their fingertips because obviously it makes all of our lives easier. But corporate data is corporate data, so we've got to be careful with that. Now, users will obviously also be users. So we come back down to the sort of locking down example. If you just block all access to all chatbots, users will find a way. They'll find a new one, and it just becomes this game of whack-a-mole where you block one, then they find another one, you block another one, whatever, right? It's better actually just to build a set of rules that users can engage with, right? That respect your users' ability to make sensible choices in the moment while also protecting your corporate data. And this is the kind of DLP rule set we're building with Chrome Enterprise Premium. So like to turn this into a more concrete real world example, let's say you got like a developer, right? Developers have access to the most intimate parts of your organization, right? They know how everything works because they wrote the code that does it. You want to make sure that code is not going anywhere. So like, let's say this developer is very keen to debug some code they're working on. So they just want to like cut and paste it and drop it into their favorite AI tool in order to debug it. You can set rules which detect whether it's code or whether it's like something else that's not concerning to your organization, And you can decide based upon the context whether or not that user could permit that, right? So if they cut and paste code into ChatGPT, for example, you can block it and say, no, this is not permitted. You could also, as part of that, suggest to the user that they're allowed to go and use something like, I'm obviously going to fly the company colors here. They could use Gemini, because that's the company's preferred AI tooling to go and debug their code. But like otherwise, we're not going to stop them using ChatGPT. If they want to do a bunch of other stuff there, great, whatever. They just can't cut and paste code into this tool. Then you can also, if you want to be more relaxed about some of these things, you can trigger effectively speed bumps with some of these DLP controls. So if we take that same example again, users cutting and pasting code from IDE into ChatGPT, you can trigger a warning that says, hey, are you sure you meant to do that? This is obviously quite sensitive. We'd really prefer you use Gemini. We'll let you do this if you really want to. Do you really want to? Yes, no? And that actually is usually enough of a speed bump to prevent users doing sort of accidental data exfil. And obviously, admins get logs of all these things as well, so you can see what's going on across your organization. So there's a bunch of cool tooling here, which isn't just incredibly frustrating to end users. It's actually designed to allow them to be as productive as they can be while still protecting your organization.
It also kind of gives them a little education too, a little bit too, because that speed bump saying, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You should be doing this here. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm multitasking. I may have just pasted in the wrong prompt, but it kind of makes them realize that as they're going through their workflow and multitasking and so forth.
Correct. Yeah.
Especially when you have, like 100 tabs open, right? Like I've never accidentally pasted something in the wrong tab, where a reminder like that would have been helpful, right? Not like accidentally texting the wrong person, like you mean to text your kids and you accidentally text your wife, similar concept there. So this is all really cool. And, I love hearing how in some ways this is extremely unobtrusive, and the fact that it lives in the browser, in some ways, kind of, helps deal with that death by 1,000 agents on your endpoint that, takes what should be a 30-second startup and turns it into a 30-minute startup, is really, really cool. And I love kind of the thought process that has gone into this. And to kind of build off that, right, the next question is, there's a lot of other players in the space, and it's almost like there's a lot of co-opetition with EUC vendors. Recently, Chrome Enterprise had announced had some joint announcements with like Citrix for secure private access and Omnissa for their secure access suite. So given what we've talked about with Enterprise Core and Enterprise Premium, can you talk about how those integrations and any other integrations we haven't mentioned, how that kind of plays into the overall vision, and, what are some things that our listeners should be aware of?
Sure. So, I guess to start with, I want to be clear. Like our philosophy here is we want to play better together, right? So, there's a whole range of incredibly important players in this space, and like our goal isn't to like replace these VDI giants that are so core to how many organizations operate. It's like with these partnerships, we really just want to help secure access to them, right? So for a really long time now, Citrix has had its own enterprise browsing product. In recent months, we've worked to deepen our partnership with Citrix, and we've built this integration called Citrix Secure Access with Chrome Enterprise. And obviously a very, very similar thing with Omnissa. Obviously, they recently announced at their Omnissa One event, the Omnissa Secure Access Suite integration with Chrome Enterprise Premium as well. Like the real theme for both of these products is device posture without the agent. So traditionally, to get the level of security that we're able to provide based upon Chrome Enterprise Premium, you had to install a bunch of thick local exe agents on every device. Right now, with Chrome browser itself, which is obviously installed on billions of users' devices around the world, when you're trying to access corporate resources, when you're trying to access this sensitive information, like the browser just acts as that that integrity check. It acts as that agent instead. And this basically allows for, I think, what Citrix refer to as agentless ZTNA, or zero trust network access. So this builds upon a feature that we've recently released, which is the Chrome Enterprise Connectors framework, which allows identity and security providers. This is everyone from Citrix and Omnissa, who we've already listed, through to CrowdStrike, Cisco, Ping, Zscaler, many others, to integrate with these sort of managed browser deployments that are configured through our Google Admin Console. And it allows them to collect real-time browser and device posture data, which ensures visibility and sort of continuous compliance with corporate policies, no matter what tooling these enterprises are using. Right. The problem is very similar, no matter which technology stack you're engaged with right now. Your users are in the browser. Your users are doing things in the browser which are important and sensitive, and that trend is only going to continue. Right. It makes sense for us to integrate with these partners to provide like the best in class like endpoint security product, and allow enterprises to pick whatever their preferred technology stack is to go and deploy that. That's really our play here.
Okay. So what you're looking to do really is not supplant some of the other services, but really it's an extension of it, right? Where if I'm a Workspace ONE shop, or I'm an Intune shop, I can integrate Chrome Enterprise into my full posture, right? If I'm using CrowdStrike, I can integrate that, or Zscaler, or any of these other suites. So it's not just like picking and choosing one solution or having point solutions that I have to manage, but getting kind of that all-encompassing full 360 ability to manage regardless of what device or endpoint.
Correct. You as an organization should be able to pick the best in class technology for the job, and you shouldn't then have more overhead because you're choosing to pick the best tool for the job. Right. That's really where we're trying to position this.
Okay, cool.
And we mentioned, BYOD and hybrid work, and this is, kind of right up the alley here. They're kind of, big in the enterprise use cases. We talked about Chrome Enterprise. How else is Google helping enterprise customers with these use cases?
Sure. So BYOD is a lot of fun, right? So end users love it, organizations hate it, right? So traditionally for enterprise, BYOD is it's a bit of a nightmare, right? Users just refuse to install the MDM agents because they don't want their IT admins, seeing their personal, family photos or bookmarks or browsing history or whatever. And this forces IT to make a decision, right? Do you ship end user do you ship devices to these end users, which might be expensive or difficult or problematic, or do you just risk security by letting your users have unmanaged devices? And that's not really a good compromise, right? We don't see it that way. There should be a third way, right? So with Chrome Enterprise, we don't assume the device is managed. We don't assume the device is unmanaged. We actually just elevate the boundary at which your corporate data and corporate resources are protected to the browser, right? The OS is no longer the layer that needs management. Now it's just the browser and the browser context, right? So, for example, user downloads Chrome onto their personal MacBook, then they sign in with their corporate credentials, rob@company.com, and then this creates an entirely new work profile window. Right. So everything that happens in that window is managed. Everything that happens outside of that window, unmanaged. And as anything tries to permeate that boundary, that's when it becomes in scope for management, DLP, and other controls. Right. Now, we recently launched a new feature to help users understand this context a little bit better. So from earlier this year, IT can now also brand that window with like company logo and other bits and pieces. So there's like visual cues that help users understand your company is watching this window, but over here is fine. And that sort of visibility. So obviously this brings with it a bunch of interesting benefits both for users and IT. So The one we see most obviously is like the day one onboarding challenge, right? So, M&A or bringing in contractors or whatever, right? So, scenario, you hire 50 workers, right? Great. Do you ship 50 laptops to them? I don't know, cost of 50K plus shipping and then just have them sat on the bench for 2 weeks? Or do you tell them to pick their favorite device, download Chrome and sign in? Right. That is the sort of the level of difference we're looking at here. And obviously, as part of the security tooling that comes built into Chrome, if one of those users happens to have malware or something else on their device, as soon as they try and log in, the security tooling that's built in will say, "Oh no, sorry, your device is not secure. You are ineligible to sign in. Collect a new device or clean up your existing one or whatever." So, but what it means is hopefully 50 out of your 50 new contractors or employees or whatever can just get working on day one. And if there's one who doesn't, then fine. That's easy enough problem to solve. So that's the first one. Second one, privacy preserving like security, right? So you actually mentioned this point earlier, Sean, right? Seriously locked down, but on an unmanaged device, right? That's a little questionable from like a privacy perspective. If I've got my personal device, do I want my IT admin being able to like snoop and see what I'm doing across my clipboard or like key logging or any of these other like corporate surveillance tools? None of that exists, right? Inside that work profile, admin's God, right? Admin can decide what happens. You can block stuff. You can prevent screenshots. You can, manage AI. You can prevent printing, all of this kind of other stuff. Outside of that window, it's the user's device, right? We don't want to touch it. If the user chooses to introduce things between that, that's the user's decision. But other than that, like we're super keen to make sure that like users' privacy is respected here, and it behaves in the way the user would expect it to for their own device.
So in some ways, it's Android work profiles or Samsung Knox inside Chrome and being able to deliver that to any endpoint, as opposed to kind of that full management of a BYOD device that you might get by installing an agent on it or
correct
enrolling it in like a work profile for certain operating systems. One other thing that kind of stood out to me before we move on to the next question is you had talked about like, oh, you have 50 new people starting. What's better, ship them a laptop or say download Chrome or start a new profile and sign in with your corporate credentials? In a past life, I had worked with supporting some partners that were very large consulting shops, and those users would get very heavily locked down laptops where then they would have to go to a customer and the customer's like, well, to get access to this, you need to install this VDI client or this VPN client. And the company that they're paying, it's like, so the company that the customer is paying to do this work is shipping a laptop to these consultants who are then being told, no, you can't do that. You have to bring your own personal device or do something else but you have to do this work on your corporate laptop and we won't make an exception for this customer that's paying us to do this. So by being able to wrap all this in a browser, and I know that's a bit of a tongue twister and trying to follow that on like logically, you're going to have like a string board and the guy with the meme with the guy with like, which one I'm talking about, right? The crazy guy. But it's like being able to just do this in a browser, there's a good chance they already have Chrome on it, right? And all you're doing is creating a new profile and you don't have to worry about extra clients and extra security exceptions to make this work. So that's really cool in a way that it simplifies how anyone can work, especially if you're looking at like M&A activities or bringing in third-party consultants.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I want to take a step back here. We've talked about Chrome as a web browser, and the capabilities of Chrome Enterprise built on top of the web browser, but Chrome isn't just a browser, right? There's Chrome OS and Chromebook and Chrome devices. And I think for a lot of users who, are kind of adjacent to this space, right? There's been a lot of changes to it. So can you tell us what the difference is? Tell us a little bit about Chrome OS, how Chrome OS and Chrome OS Flex differ, um, and then how Flex is helping enterprises, especially extend the life of existing devices.
Sure.
And that's a lot of
So,
questions there. I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. So let me just start with just a super quick summary of Chrome OS. I know you've got more questions about it later on in this session, but just go in with a quick summary. So I mean, at its core, Chrome OS it's a cloud enabled OS, right? All the customizations, all the configurations, all the user preferences, everything from your wallpaper through to the way you engage with apps, through to the layouts, all of that, right? It's just saved in the cloud in a safe, secure way, right? Now, with that, you get this really cool magic with Chrome OS. So when you log into a Chrome OS device, everything's sort of set up for you. So we can, I guess we can talk in a few moments about the Google Admin Console or the management surface, but like the entire experience can be customized in a positive way, not like locked down and turning features off and so on. Like that's possible, but like you can actually customize it as an admin in positive ways, in ways that make your employees' day and lives easier, right? And as you go and use that device over time, you make changes to things. All of that just gets saved in the cloud. And the magic of this is if you switch from one Chrome OS device to another Chrome OS device, the experience is exactly the same. Like exactly the same, down to the color palette and the wallpaper and everything else. So if you lose your device, for example, right, nothing's actually lost. You just, the hardware's gone, but you just open a new device and you're working within seconds, right? It's exactly the same as if you had your old device. And that's really cool, right? Now, this works because it's a super simple cloud-based OS. The premise behind this really is like everything you're working on is browser-based. It comes back to our sort of North Star point that I mentioned earlier. And like this gives you this like very free experience where you don't have to be tied down to apps that are installed. You don't have to have 200 million docx files saved in your My Documents file. Like just none of that exists in the way we work, right? Everything's in cloud drives, all the configurations up there. It's a very like freeing experience. So all right, let's just briefly then talk about Flex. So Chrome OS, obviously at its core is the OS. We have Chromebook devices, which is hardware provided by a range of manufacturers, the Acer, Asus, HP, Lenovo, several of these. Think of this as like it's the appliance, it's hardware and software together.
Yep.
And Chrome OS Flex is just the software only piece, right? So this means that you can take any old Windows, PC, Mac, whatever particular significant event with Windows 10 end of life this year, I think has been a key driver here. And you can take that old hardware and you can install Chrome OS Flex on it and turn it into a Chrome OS device, meaning you get all of the sort of simplicity and magic of this with a much more sort of lightweight OS, and you can extend the lifetime of this hardware for quite literally years. So you get major cost benefits. You end up with sort of environmental benefits wrapped around this as well. And if you're facing a sort of cliff edge event like Windows 10 end of life, and you don't have hardware refresh ready to go, instantly your devices are ready to go, enrolled in management, easy to support, easy to secure. You get all the benefits of sort of the managed Chrome browser experience. All of this is just deployed on that device, and it requires almost zero effort to get there, which is really, really, really cool. So let me just talk about a couple of the differences between these, because I sort of alluded to the fact that they're exactly the same. It's not quite the case. I want to call out in full transparency. So Chrome OS devices, so devices that are produced by our OEMs and devices that come with sort of Chrome OS installed, that comes with sort of this sort of first party hardware security product that we refer to as the Titan C security chip. So that ensures consistent integrity, ensures the hardware is solid, ensures like that device is super, super, super secure, right? There are like it is cryptographically verified as secure at all times. And if there's any deviation for that, the device either won't boot, or it will reset itself, or it will, report back to your management that this device is no longer suitable or credible for enterprise work. It is super, super secure. And we've got thousands of them rolled out across Google for exactly this kind of secure kind of workflow. Now, with that, it also comes with a feature referred to as verified boot. So as soon as you power on the device, that Titan C chip cryptographically verifies that the OS hasn't been tampered with. If it finds something that's modified, it will self-heal or return to a backup partition, and so on and so on. And the other major difference we've got between Flex and Chrome OS Core is the Android ecosystem. So because obviously we can verify the integrity of these devices, we can access Play, we can access the huge ecosystem of Android apps. That's not quite the same on Flex devices because, by its very nature, we've got less trust in the hardware it's sat on. So while the OS itself will remain secure and self-check itself, if there's anything else in the hardware that we can't see and control, that's difficult for us to own and manage as the OS provider. But obviously with that, we can't bring the full ecosystem of Google Play out. But we've still got the web, which is where users spend 90% of their time. So we're very happy with that.
Okay. So, you were talking about really early on, like, I think my kids would disagree on you can manage it to a lot of positives because schools tend to lock it down. But, I will say the experience on a Chromebook, especially like the first party hardware, is really nice, right? I have had a couple of Chromebooks. I actually have one sitting over here, a Pixelbook Go, that when I need to, it's really simple just to power wash it and, get it right back to that, brand new pristine state for whatever reason and move forward. And I know my kids, they use Chromebooks at school. Anytime they have needed to get theirs repaired, they just take it to the library. The library takes it, gives them a loaner. They sign back into the loaner. And like you said, they're right back to where they left off with all their apps, all their shortcuts, their profile, all their tabs come back. So it is that really good, really portable experience. So I think you touched on this a little bit, but how are you simplifying Chrome OS device management? Because we've kind of talked about the complexity of device management a little bit. We've talked about how you simplify browser management with Enterprise Core and Enterprise Premium. We've talked about that cloud admin console. So how are you making Chrome OS management easier for the admin?
Sure. So I guess I'll start by coming back to the Google Admin Console, which really is at the core of all of these things. So this is our cloud-based management console, where from that single pane of glass you can manage your browsers and the sort of managed browser experience, but also Chrome OS and in fact other devices in your device fleet, other Android devices and workspace and so on. Like there's a lot of power in that console. Now, if we just think about some of the benefits of this cloud-based console, there's sort of a piece I refer to as like the 10-second rule, right? So if you're familiar with managing Windows devices at scale, like if you've ever waited for a GPO to propagate across a large domain, it can take a little while. It is, it's not known for its 10-second behavior. Google Admin, however, you just push a change and within 10 seconds, your entire fleet, whether it's 10 devices, 10,000 devices, all of them instantly applied, right? Everything. That is how we think about this. So there's no delays, there's no waits or anything else like this. So like you can manage the experience, you can manage app deployment, you can manage browser configuration, you can manage all of this other stuff all from that single pane of glass, which is really cool, right? And there's a lot of granularity here, so you can separate by groups, by users, by organizational units. So, just a example of the kind of policy you could set. You could have things like your marketing teams able to access like YouTube and social media, for example. But obviously, the finance team can't. And the finance team maybe has to have two-factor authentication whenever they're accessing stuff, but maybe the marketing team has exactly like this is the kind of granularity you can start to apply, which is really cool. So then for Chrome OS specifically, I'm gonna start with like the I guess slight overkill feature, and then go into some of the other policies and cool stuff we've got for getting started. So the biggest concern we've got with like these managed devices, particularly given the simplicity of them, is what happens when one gets lost. So if a Chrome OS device is left in a taxi or on a train or whatever, like admin can just remotely disable it, and then the next time it connects to the internet, not the next time a user tries to do anything with it, it's like the next time it connects to the internet, completely locks down and displays a like customized "please return this to company" message, and it basically just becomes a paperweight, right? Mm-hmm. So until it's returned to an admin and they can verify it's good to go, then we've got this instant thing delivered through our cloud management console, which is cool. So then, all right, so that's a one end of the life cycle. Let's start with the easy, happy bit: getting customers or getting end users these devices. So one of the coolest features we've got is something we call zero touch enrollment, right? This is a real logistics win. So obviously the old way, IT receives like a pallet of laptops from the OEM, bunch of guys in some dark room somewhere, unbox each one, they image it, they add it to corporate policy, then they rebox them, then they ship them out to users one by one. The Google way is you buy the devices from a reseller and send them to your users. And because of our cloud management console, it's already enrolled. It's good to go. It's always set up with all of your policies. It's like the first time that user logs in, boom, everything. And if they came from a previous Chrome OS device, great. They've just got a brand new one. There's no effort. You don't need humans involved in this process anymore, which is really, really, really cool. So there's zero touch enrollment. Like another cool one we've got, again, for Chrome OS device management, sometimes you need the ability to pass devices around. So schools is a good example of this. And we have a feature referred to as like ephemeral mode. So you as an admin decide the exact experience that your users should have, regardless of who they are. And then the moment the user logs in, they've got a completely fresh, clean experience as you have configured. They do their work, they do whatever they need to do, then they log out, everything's gone, right? And this means that device can just be passed around, it can be shared, every single user gets exactly the same experience, and nothing is saved on the device. So this is good for things like high stakes testing or in a doctor's office or something where like you want to be really, really sure that there's no like autocomplete things that get saved or other bits and pieces which you might experience with other devices. So there's a bunch of cool stuff here. So obviously hundreds and hundreds of policies in our cloud management console, zero touch enrollment, like device security, and multiple modes of use supported.
Yeah, this is a great common theme here of simplicity, flexibility, time to value, and secure as well. So it's great, and it's all from a simplified single console here without having to go across different forms and functions to get certain things done. You mentioned your device landscape, your OEM manufacturers out there that you guys partner with. You also have a Chromebook Plus. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes. So Chromebook Plus, the power user standard here, as we're calling it. So coming back to your point earlier, Sean, for years, everyone just thought Chromebooks were just for schools. They were that like locked down thing that their kids had that they didn't like because that's how they got their schoolwork. We're trying to change that, right? So we introduced Chromebook Plus relatively recently as effectively a certification with our OEMs to guarantee a premium experience for enterprise knowledge workers. That's really the target we're going after. And what the Chromebook Plus certification means is that there's a hardware guarantee, right? Every single Chromebook Plus meets minimum standards for like premium hardware, right? It won't get sluggish when you've got 100 browser tabs open. It It will allow you to multitask with Android apps, with web apps, with everything else that's running. And you as an end user will have an excellent experience, ideally better than what you would experience on one of our other competitors at a extremely competitive price point. So that's really where we're going with that. Now, it's not just pass looking, it's not just like hardware stats. We're increasingly differentiating the Chromebook Plus line from the sort of more EDU and school focused layers with a bunch of new AI features. So with this higher end hardware, with this slightly higher price point than the $200 kids devices, we can start to introduce things like an NPU. So forgive me, I've forgotten what the acronym stands for. Someone in marketing will give me a swift kick for that. But so we have these AI features driven by our NPU, which allow us to have on-device privacy respecting AI features. And you've started to see some of these things roll out in recent releases of Chrome OS. So things like the quick insert key, where we've got like a new dedicated physical key on the keyboard, which instantly neural processing unit. There we go. Someone in marketing came and reminded me. All right. So sorry, let's come back to this. So the quick insert key, right? So this is dedicated physical key on the keyboard, which summons Gemini to help you write or like insert an emoji or find a drive file without having to leave the context in which you're working. And that works in browser tabs, it works in apps, it works everywhere, right? And that sort of thing requires, on-device processing to understand context. Then we've got things like live translate, right? So because of that powerful hardware, the OS can capture and translate any audio playing on the device in real time. So whether that's like a Zoom call or a Google Meet or YouTube or some locally saved video or whatever, you can translate that in real time into your native language without it having to sort of loop back over the web. Everything just runs on the device. Then we've got things like camera AI, so background blur, lighting correction, all of these bits and pieces run locally on these Chromebook Plus devices. And obviously, soon to come, more Gemini in Chrome and some of the other cool features I talked about earlier.
I actually have one of the older of the Chromebook Pluses. I've got what they called in the past, but they're the silver ones. They're more higher in hardware. I actually have one of those from my consulting days still. I got to find it. But yeah, those are really nice devices. And now the newer ones are going to have even more stuff with the NPUs and that kind of stuff. And so it sounds like it's really good. And that's that premium experience on that hardware. So I'm liking that.
Yeah, and there were some really nice premium Chromebooks too. I know like the Samsung ones. I think that might be like the Samsung Plus was a really premium Chromebook. The Pixelbook Go, if I set it next to my ThinkPad, if it didn't say Pixelbook on one and ThinkPad on the other, I'd have a hard time telling them apart. And like the Pixelbook in some ways feels like a MacBook Air, right? And how small and light it is and how thin it is. So, there's a lot of really cool premium devices in the Chromebook line, even before Chromebook Plus. But I want to shift gears here a second, or maybe shift gears back here for a second. We were talking about, NPUs and some of the AI capabilities being built into Chromebook Plus. But Google in general has been a leader when it comes to AI and machine learning and all those areas, right? We wouldn't have ChatGPT and Gemini if it wasn't for the Transformer work that Google did 2017 is I think when that paper came out. So can you talk a little bit more about, how Google has been at the forefront of integrating AI into both cloud services and into the end user computing space, which I think we did just talk about a little bit, but like maybe a little bit more on that.
Sure. So yeah, like really, really good call out there. I mean, I guess Google generally, we've been doing AI before it was cool. I mean, we've had it in everything from like workspace tooling to like inside your Gmail, help me write. All of this kind of stuff it's been there for years, right? And then in on-device functionality, we've been using AI in places that users just don't even think about it, right? So stuff like adaptive battery charging and adaptive battery usage to prolong the life of your devices. These things have been baked into our devices for years, right? And it's not it's not because it's a buzzword, it's because it's the better way of doing things. And that's historically what we've really been pushing. So obviously I've talked about Gemini and Chrome, and particularly how you can use that to ask Gemini about context of one or more of your browser tabs. So let's say you open a web page with a huge amount of text on it. Instead of having to cut and paste that and move it into your preferred AI tool, you just literally click one button and just ask, hey Gemini, what is this? Or can you help summarize this? Or if you've got 10 tabs open and you're like, hey Gemini, just add these tabs together, can you summarize all of this work for me into a quick one page? Like, you can do a lot of really cool stuff wrapping Gemini around the context of the work you've got in front of you. So there's that. We'll continue to add more functionality into the workspace suite of tools and so on. And obviously, I touched a little bit on how you can use Gemini plus Cameo to bring new superpowers to apps that haven't been touched by developers in 15 or 20 years. Like, you can now engage with these apps in ways that developers could never have dreamed of. So there's a lot of cool stuff landing for end users. Obviously, suitably wrapped with enterprise policy and management to allow IT admins to control how their users engage with these tools and technologies. But then you sort of asked a little bit about the cloud side as well. So as I was thinking about this question, there were sort of three areas that really came to mind when I was thinking about this. Obviously, chatbots are the exciting thing of the day, right? With the product we've got in our cloud tool set called Vertex AI, like, Google doesn't just give you a chatbot to manipulate. We're giving you like a factory to go and build your own, right? And that's really cool. So you can choose from over like 130 models, all hosted in Vertex AI. You're not just locked into one model, and you can use that to build your own like custom chatbot or custom user experience. So that's the first one. The second one, there's obviously the fuel that sits behind this, right? And it's data. Google's BigQuery product, this has been around for years. It's this infinitely scalable data warehouse product because, AI is only really as good as the data you can feed it. So, you can point Vertex AI or any other AI tool at your BigQuery dataset and be like, hey, based upon my entire data warehouse, predicts next month's inventory shortages based upon the last 5 years of sales data and stuff like that. And it will just go and process petabytes of information and just give you an answer in seconds. Like, that is really cool. Mm-hmm. And then underpinning all of it, obviously, I think we've got a bit of an infrastructure advantage here at Google. Like, everyone talks about like GPUs and that one incredibly valuable company that's producing them right now. Google has been producing our own AI chips, TPUs, for over a decade. And we've been vertically integrating it into our entire stack. And that's for us, that's obviously faster and cheaper for training large models. And customers can get that benefit as well, rather than relying solely on third-party hardware that might be at something of a premium right now. So there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the Google AI space. I'm just scratching the surface with these things. But yeah, I think that's really the summary for now.
Okay. Yeah. And yeah, there's a lot, I think with the latest version of Gemini, the big news about it was that it was entirely trained in-house on Google's TPUs. There was no third-party silicon involved in that. So, to expand on AI, right? We kind of talked about how it plays into Google Cloud and where Google's advantages are, but there's Gemini Enterprise. So, can you tell us a little bit about, where Gemini Enterprise is different, and, how are enterprises adopting Gemini Enterprise and AI agents as part of their workflows? Even with some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, like Gemini being able to interact with these old apps through Cameo and the web browser. What are we seeing, and where is the direction kind of going with Gemini Enterprise and AI agents?
Sure. Good question. So let me maybe just start with like the lineup of Gemini products we've got. So I mean, broadly categorized into two places. So there's like Gemini Business, which is the like light version, so standard AI features in Docs, Gmail, the like relatively light tool set that you'd expect for the vast majority of users just engaging in workspace use. And then we've got Enterprise, which is like the heavier version. This includes things like AI meetings with automatic translations and captions and stuff in Meet, and unlimited usage of some of our most powerful models. So our pro lineup of models and so on, as well as more significant DLP integration. Now, the DLP integration is kind of really really key here, right? Because there's this whole trust argument really with CISOs and other leads, particularly for enterprise who's got a lot of corporate data. There's two big concerns here, right? So one is I want to make sure my users aren't accidentally or maliciously leaking my data into models that I can't control or models I can't understand. So, we're wrapping DLP around how users engage with AI tooling at the endpoint. We've touched on that already. But the sort of the second significant piece here, and where it sort of plays into Gemini Enterprise is, like a lot of enterprises want to make sure that stuff their users are putting into these chatbots and assistants isn't then being recycled into training the model for their competitors, right? Data privacy is critical to this, and I mean Google's been doing this for a long time with Google Cloud. So obviously the first real product that we can think of here of sort of similar nature is Google Translate. So obviously there's the publicly available version of Google Translate, which will continue learning based upon what people are putting into it, and it's the collective sum of all usage. But obviously for enterprises, we want to make sure if sensitive data is dropped in there, it's not then used to go and train other models. The same principles are true with our enterprise Gemini products. So you as an enterprise can use the managed Google Gemini product, and you can be sure that your data is not then used to go and train the model to make it better for somebody else, or potentially accidentally leaking something you've dropped in elsewhere. Your enterprise's resources remain in your enterprise's space, and that's sort of really critical for this. So then there's sort of what's next, right? So I guess, yeah, we've really just had kind of the year of the chatbot, right? Everyone's just engaging with chatbots. They're typing stuff in, they're copying and pasting a bunch of stuff in. Like everyone's having a great time. Really, our next year, we're hoping to be the sort of the year of the agent, right? So instead of just asking a chatbot that's trained on a relatively small subset of data, I don't know, how do I reset a printer or whatever? Instead, we're building, not with a baseball bat. I'm just thinking, sorry, just triggered that Office Space memory. Anyway, yeah. Sorry. Sorry, back on point. So we build something that's more like a help desk agent, right? Which would, connect to the ticketing system and the knowledge base, and it can then actively troubleshoot, or it can figure out if the printer that user stood in front of, it has known faults, or there's like a technician on the way or whatever. And ultimately, it can handle the entire workflow of user has a printer issue all the way through to printers repaired, potentially replaced, or smashed with Office Space reference, without a human ever having to engage in that like ticketing workflow. And that really is the sort of direction of travel, and that really is what I think we can start to get to with the tools that we're increasingly seeing appear now.
Cool. It's really cool, and like that being able to build a help desk agent, tie it into your ticketing system, knowledge base. You build that chat interface so that you can help have that context-aware search, better context-aware search to get users to the answers faster, or synthesize the answers across like 3 or 4 knowledge base articles that may not always be up to date, or here's the direction to that baseball bat to take care of this printer. You'll find it in, there's a baseball bat in this particular staff break area. Be sure to reserve it for, a 15-minute interval. It will take you 5 minutes to walk there to get it and come back,
Or if you can't find it, Sean was the last one using it. So,
Yeah, but definitely love being able to make, IT more streamlined, getting answers out there faster, because especially with end users, they start getting impatient and it starts impacting productivity. So anything that can, be more proactive in helping them and reducing any kind of friction on the help desk side, and also helping enable the help desk to be more efficient is a great example that you gave there. Going back to the Chromebooks, I actually found my old one here, if you can see it. One of those older premium Chromebooks. I can't remember what the name of this one was, but yeah, it's over here on my desk behind me. It was still sitting there. So I still have this older one. It's not as cool as the one with the MPUs that you got coming out for all the AI stuff, but
I've still got one of these down here.
Oh, nice.
It's sadly a relic now, but I love those things. But yes, sorry, we shouldn't be using this time just to show off our device catalogs. This is
no, but it's the device. I bet I could probably still get this working too with power back on, check it out. But thanks for all your time today. And we're getting towards the end. I know it's end of the year and everyone's trying to get those last things done. So as we're wrapping up 2025, what are you all looking forward to as you start 2026?
Sure. So obviously there's a lot of exciting stuff going on here, and we're continuing to sort of expand our footprint within the EUC space. We're obviously continuing to invest in experience for organizations across that portfolio of Google products, while obviously acknowledging our partner ecosystem is there, and we want to give users this great experience with our better together story. But yeah, I think next year we're going to continue to see more adoption of Cameo, I hope, which is great. We're continuing to see growth in the sort of the tool set we've got around our Chrome Enterprise Premium products, and more controls, better experience. It's going to be an exciting time for this team. And obviously, Gemini's at the core of everything we're doing now. So yeah, very excited to see this.
Well, looking forward to it as well. And as we close things down, Sean, do you have any last closing thoughts?
I don't really have any closing thoughts other than, this has been, really insightful on, where Google has been going with the managed workspace and the managed browser. There's features in there that, I kind of heard of, but had never had a chance to explore. So Rob, thank you for coming on today to talk about all of this. I think there's a lot of value and a lot of benefit to a lot of customers and organizations, because somewhere they have Google Chrome in their organization. It's probably their default browser today. So, there's a lot that our listeners, our World of EUC members, and even just anybody in the EUC space could take away from this conversation. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you both for having me today.
And any closing thoughts from you, Rob, as you close things down?
I guess it wouldn't be complete without a quick pitch here then. So I guess if I had to summarize the Google EUC story for 26, I guess it is the browser is just no longer a tool as part of users' day-to-day. It is the secure and intelligent operating system for the cloud era. And obviously with Gemini and AI at the core. So yeah, with that, I guess, excited to see what's coming.
Well, thank you again for coming on today, Rob. And thank you also for Google for supporting the world of EUC. Make sure they go check out Google's products there, the Cameo launch, the things they're doing with the Chrome OS and the Chrome Enterprise versions out there. We'll share any links in the blog as well, and this goes live, that you guys want to share. For those of you listening, you can check the video out on YouTube. You can subscribe to where you listen to your podcast. If you have not signed up, please sign up for the World of EUC on the website, where you can get information. Amplify Virtual is going to be April 29th, and Amplify in person is going to be September 29th through October 1st in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Super early bird registration is open. Call for papers is also open. You can see that all on the website where to get the information. So if you're thinking about doing a session, please go ahead and submit there. We're looking forward to seeing everyone in Milwaukee. I just want to say thank you to all of our sponsors for their continued support. Our founding partners, Tenzig, Goliath Technologies, iGel, Liquidware, Omnissa, Nerdio, and Nutanix. Our channel founding sponsor, Choice Solutions. Our core sponsors this year for 2025, Google. So thank you, Google, and also Parallel. So I want to say thank you to everyone. Hopefully everyone's having a happy holiday season. And thank you for listening to the Frontline Chatter podcast, and we will talk to you next time.
All right.